Democratic mayor of Nashville purposefully cover up the low numbers of COVID-19 cases that began in bars to continue a lockdown of bars and restaurants when one wasn't actually needed? No. Why would anyone do that? Jesus Christ. Do you think Democrats don't like bars or restaurants? Do you think people with progressive values just hate food and beverages and the working class? No. How do you think America got sushi and decent beer? Liberals. That's how. So yeah, anyway, Fox News, aka the reason why about half of Gen Xers are no longer completely dreading the impending death of their parents, exploded recently with the news that a huge cover-up was happening in Tennessee. They got their information from Nashville's local Fox News channel, Fox 17. It's important to note that local Fox affiliates aren't necessarily the conservative, ignorant shitholes that Fox News is. But in this case, Fox 17 is owned by Sinclair, who you may remember from this clip in which Sinclair owned stations around the country, all parroted the same pro-Trump fascist nonsense.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Yeah, Sinclair is, well, some people might say dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely 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 dangerous to our democracy.
Fox 17 reported that when the Nashville mayor's office emailed the health department asking for solid numbers on how many COVID-19 cases came from interactions in bars, the health department replied, "We have certainly refused to give counts per bar because those numbers are low per site." Wow, a cover-up. Except it's not. If you're a real journalist who's doing his job, so you read the entire quote, you'd realize that it is in no way a cover-up. The health official in question was pointing out that they don't like to list out how many people got a disease at a particular named bar, because if that number is very low, then it will be very easy for people to figure out who got COVID-19 where, and that would be a violation of that patient's HIPAA rights. If you're unfamiliar, HIPAA is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and since 1996, it has protected Americans from having their private medical data made public or otherwise used inappropriately. Even if you're a stupid fuck who decided to go bar hopping in the middle of a pandemic and you ended up catching the Rona, you deserve to die your excruciating death in peace and privacy. Or, I mean, of course, you also deserve to live after a few days or weeks of feeling like shit, but still in peace and privacy. No one has the right to know what disease you specifically have. So that's it. If 100 people get COVID-19 in one bar, then it's probably not risking any one person's private health information to say so publicly. If 2 people get COVID-19 from one named bar, now you've narrowed it down to the point that a respectful government is going to want to keep that information private. And in the full quote in the emails, you can see that the health official did say that they could release the total number of people who contracted COVID-19 from bars because that would tell people the accurate number without violating anyone's privacy. And in fact, a journalist with 2 brain cells to rub together might have looked it up and realized that the health department did in fact do just that in a live-streamed press conference on July 2nd.
Thank you. This decision to move back to phase 2, it feels like the primary issue is the bars. You talked about record clusters around bars. When did you start seeing this, and can you give us, a little more detail on what kinds of clustering you've been seeing and over what time period?
Yeah, thank you, Blake. So what I'll tell you is Saturday afternoon, I got a call from one of our leaders of our epidemiologists, and this is not something that typically happens. That I get a call, they're like, "Hey, we're starting to see something," and very quickly, this was right at the beginning. They recognized that there was some trend that they were starting to see that was not typical. They reached out to me, we reached out to the mayor, and all the teams really started working together all weekend to get into the details here. What we're seeing is there are about at least 10 locations around the city that have had at least a total of 30 people confirmed that have tested positive, and these are Davidson County residents. There's maybe others who are at these locations that live outside of Davidson County that may have been infected, and I think that's what this was atypical, right?
Once these very blatant and obvious fuck-ups were revealed to Fox 17, they pulled their own article about it. But our parents and grandparents already saw it on Fox News, where, for instance, Fox and Friends covered it, which forced host Steve Doocy to apologize later for any confusion. Yes, Steve, there was some confusion. The confusion was about whether or not you're an actual journalist and how a modern society continues to allow morons like you to broadcast absolute lies to millions of gullible people. And then there's good old Tucker Carlson. Carlson, who Tom Tomorrow once said looks like a confused dog who's too dumb to understand that if he sits and stays, he gets a treat, breathlessly reported the Fox 17 story as gospel to his credulous audience. When the story was duly retracted, Carlson actually managed to make Steve Doocy look like a stand-up guy. Carlson didn't apologize or even faux apologize or even correct himself. He simply threw his arms in the air and said, "We don't know the truth." Because knowing the truth would require reading a few emails and thinking about facts. And I guess Tucker Carlson's feelings got in the way of those facts. Carlson's take on the story is still up on Fox News' website, where it remains unedited except for an italicized note at the top reading, Fox 17 in Nashville pulled its original story from its website amid pressure from the Nashville mayor's office, who claimed that the leaked emails that reportedly suggested a cover-up were taken out of context. Sure, that's like if I broadcast a report saying that Tucker Carlson likes to eat his own semen. And when I get a letter from his lawyer detailing all the reasons Carlson does not eat his own semen, I can just say I'm retracting my claim amid pressure from Tucker Carlson, who claims that his semen tastes terrible. The mayor's office doesn't need to claim anything. That word is used for an assertion that we do not know is necessarily true. But the emails are there for anyone to look at. Even Tucker Carlson. I'm pretty sure he's literate. And by reading those emails, a reasonable person can see that the idea of a cover-up was just made up out of whole cloth. The second sentence in the editor's note is even more amazing. It has also been reported that the data in question was released back in August. That's a thing of beauty right there. It has also been reported. The passive voice is just, mwah. Who reported it? That the data in question was released back in August? It was released back in July, which we can see by watching this actual video clip of a live streamed press conference during which the data is very publicly released. I'm sorry. I guess all this is just to point out what a bunch of lying hacks Fox News talking heads are, but you knew that already. And what a bunch of morons Americans are for gobbling up whatever garbage news tidbits they drop on the floor. We're all doomed.